Welcome to the Gary Abbott YouTube channel. Glad to have you with me. On one of my recent videos, I got a comment from Frank. I'm going to put it up on the screen and I'm going to read it to you. As many of you know, I'm all about the villages 90% of the time. Sometimes I'm about budgets. And Frank asked me this question. Would be great to hear your thoughts on starting retirement and how to create a retirement paycheck using fictitious numbers, of course. Your thoughts on Social Security, early or late, and your thoughts on Medicare type plans. So much to talk about. So I did send a comment to Frank like, retirement paycheck, what exactly do you mean? And he sent me a long list of like, how do you, besides Social Security, put a payment plan together using your retirement funds, Roth, all of those kind of things, so you have a steady income, and he calls it a paycheck. And I thought it was a great topic because I've been kind of on the fence that since I retired, I have been transitioning both mentally of being a saver and investor to retirement where, yeah, you got to think about your allocations. And I thought I would do this video. I don't know how long it's going to be. It could be a long one. But I'm going to try to keep it simple, not quite as complex as talking about all of the options, all of the choices. But I have to start here first. What you do before you get to your 60s, hopefully you put in your mind you need to do something. Invest, put money away, have some CDs for a rainy day, start a Roth IRA. Hopefully you've done something, or invest in properties. Could be even vehicles. Could be you own something worthwhile that you can later count on as potentially selling. I just want to plant that in your head because I think people have only one thought sometimes that, it's got to be their retirement funds, their 401k. It could be a lot of different things. And this is why I'm not a financial advisor. I'm going to put the disclaimer out. I'm speaking from my own experience and what I went through watching a lot of other YouTubes to see how this would work. And I ran across a lot of videos that help. But before you get to your 60s, hopefully you've decided how you would go in a direction to retire, knowing that you're not going to have income, as scary as that sounds. Okay, why I brought up a lot of choices is because not everybody picks a Roth IRA. Not everybody is doing tax deferred. Some people have extra cash and they keep it in CDs and other investments, bonds, whatever. You may have your own philosophy. You may be more conservative than playing the stock market. For me, I tried using an investment financial person to assist, and I will tell you that I felt they were getting too much of my gains every year. It wasn't working for me personally, a financial advisor. I'm not recommending against them because if you don't know anything about finances, they can be of help, and not everybody, but I caution how much of the fees that they get. And there were some years with the stock market, didn't make a lot. It wasn't gaining like it does in the last, I'm going to say the last 7 years have been terrific if you've been in the stock market. Everybody's story is different. So a long time ago, I decided to invest my own money. I did stocks. I did those, is it ETFs or EFTs or ETFs, I think. So I started doing these ones that have low commissions, those kind of things. But I also was conservative. I did a lot of personal CDs. When I had extra money from selling a house and had extra money going to the next property, I took a lot of that cash and put it in CDs in case the stock market went down the tubes. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So that's my story. And I'm not throwing in numbers that are specific, but your journey to get there. If you own a home or have multiple homes or, other things, it's all part of the plan when you hit the 60s and you decide to retire. Now, another great wisdom thing is the question that Frank asked about retiring early or late. It's not just about you. Your spouse, your partner, that determined when I retired. It determined when I picked for Social Security. All of those things come into play. Your money comes into play, but also your expenses. Healthcare. Probably the number one reason for my delay in not retiring early. And I'll just say number one, because number two was money. I wanted more money in the accounts. But number one was, if I retired early before 65 and my wife before 65, I would have to pay for health care and my costs would go up. If I continued to work, my employer was paying some of the costs. I got health insurance through the employer, but I would still pay the out-of-pocket and the deductibles. But that was probably the biggest thing of retiring early or late. Not the Social Security amount, but the heavy financial burden of paying for health care. There's a lot of choices there. I could go into a lot about health care. I know it's renewal time for, if people are on Advantage plans. It's also renewal time if you're on a drug plan. All I can say is go out on the web, the federal websites, and look at the plans if you have any thoughts about changing plans and doing that. Now, I did hire a person, an agent, that helps me with those plans, and I do recommend that. Agents are really important in helping you understand all the plans, or watch a lot of YouTubes. There are a lot of good YouTubers out there that are agents that are explaining the benefits and the pros and cons of Advantage plans versus picking your own plan and understanding original Medicare and the costs. I will summarize it like this. Advantage plans may have a low cost monthly, but your possible out-of-pocket costs are high. If you go on to a plan like a Plan G or a Plan N, you're going to pay monthly premiums that are higher, not as high as probably your employer paid, but higher than probably what you're used to. Plan on those programs costing you $350 each per month, $350 to $400. They're all dependent on age, all the other factors, but health insurance was probably my number one thing of when I was going to retire. The number two thing was money. How much money? And this goes into Frank's question of retirement paycheck. The first most stable item is Social Security. You're going to get that based on what you earned. And there's no doubt working longer at the end there, not going at 62 or work until full retirement age, is your window of opportunity to stick extra money away, knowing you're going into this retirement. It really is. It's the opportunity to not only contribute as much as you can to whatever plan you're in. If you're in a simple IRA or a 401k, you can maximize your benefits by throwing money in there for pre-tax. But don't take your other money that's extra, or make savings or extra, knowing you need it. Saving the money, CDs, anything that you can gain interest and income on. That's my recommendation. Some people put it in Roth IRAs to be tax deferred and get the tax benefits. There's just a lot of choices. But my strategy was, I'm going to work longer. I don't want to pay for health insurance. I don't want to pay the high amount that I would have to pay if I suddenly retired early. I kept on my employers. That kept my wife on my employers. So you get it. So money. Let's talk about the retirement paycheck that Frank talks about. Social Security is your number one thing. Figure out that amount. Go online, Social Security, look up your wages, figure out if you retire at 62, 65, full retirement age at 67, 70. Get those numbers. Now, they're going to go up. If you're doing this at age 60, one of the things that you'll get a number. It's an estimate number based on your earnings. But if you earn more and more and more, that number's going to go up. It's also going to go up for inflation. So those numbers are not the exact number, but it helps you in today's dollars figure out if you can swing it with Social Security. Most cannot. So this leads me to the other part. And everybody will tell you, Social Security was never meant to fully fund your retirement. Many of the numbers I heard from financial people, it's probably 35-40% is really what Social Security was intended to do. So if I use that number, you probably need twice whatever your Social Security is, if not more, depending on your lifestyle and what you're used to. So figure out your number of what you can get in money. Then, now this is where people who retire early usually have this one thing. They have a pension that includes their health insurance. Good for you. If you work for the government, municipality, if you have a pension or work for a big company that had pension programs, terrific. Because that extra money allows you to retire early and make the choice whether you need the Social Security amount now or later. And you probably can make it work if you've saved enough to assist with that. Without going into numbers. So the next part is probably the next part. And I made these videos on making a budget. Let me clue you in. Most people won't do a budget. I don't know what it is. They just can't do it. Now, I know what happens is they used to do budgets and they never followed the budget. I know what people's normal, they look at a budget and then they say, I only did $200 for food this week and it cost me $300. Heck with the budget. You do a budget for this reason. In this stage where you're thinking about retirement, can you make it? The budget is no longer like a game of, but I'm still earning. No, it is a challenge. Can you make it in retirement? If you have so much money, you're not even watching this video. This video doesn't matter to you. But if you want to know how much you can spend, even if you have money, this video helps you. At least my intent here is to help you know what your limits of your budget are, because it's that income. It's that income. Go to my video where I tell you how to cut and paste out of the description, put it in an Excel, plug in your budget. I even go through a sample budget that's not got a lot of dollars in it, but it includes the variables like healthcare. Okay, this leads me to the next thing that's in Frank's longer description of your biggest enemy when you're down to this fixed income. And I'm not talking just Social Security, but whatever you pull out of your investments is taxes. Paying taxes on your, you put your 401k away, you put money in, and you're not really thinking about, if I take $1,000 out, I got to pay the government my 28%. I lose $280 of every $1,000 if I'm in the 28% bracket. So how do you keep yourself out of a higher tax bracket, and how much do you take out? The balancing act. Taxes is something I touch on in my budget making, but it becomes really big here with Frank's question. Your tax liability is going to take some research by you to figure out. And when you retire, you're going to be doing this tax estimation every year that you file your taxes. You're going to be figuring out next year's taxes. You're going to have to use a either IRS or AARP estimated tax calculator. And you got to pay it or you're going to get penalties. This is just not a free ride if you're used to having your employer pay the taxes and then you just file for a refund. Those days are gone. You have to understand your taxes and your tax liability. Leads me to the big point that I think Frank was trying to make. First of all, for me, I figured out my number. I figured out what my wife's number. When's the ideal time for me, for her, to retire, to take over health care. It's kind of a pecking order. Once you figure out those things, how much money do I have in what accounts? I was fortunate to sell property. I was fortunate to have cash that I had already paid taxes on. The only thing I'm paying taxes on that money is interest income. That's taxable. And with my money, I kind of did what some videos would call the bucket method. And you can watch other videos. I'm not an expert at any one. But I put money in CDs in chunks about the size of what I thought I would need in addition to my Social Security. And those CDs would roll over at different times, so I could either continue it or I could take the money to assist me in the retirement paycheck. So I started plopping off money in CDs in certain sizes and kept it rolling. Just kept it rolling for years. That was one method to assist in my Social Security Plus. I also had my investment account, which I did kind of a balanced portfolio. I had some in cash, the money market accounts that earned interest, and then I had a lot of tech software companies, tech stocks, that kind of stuff. And just leave it alone. The biggest issue that most people have when they're younger, and I'm just giving this my advice, not financial advice, is I see they run short or they need it for a new house or something and they take their money out of the retirement account. It just messes with your whole retirement account growing at a very fast rate at the end. I will tell you this. The first 10, 15 years of having a 401k, you're putting money in, your company might be matching it, and it doesn't seem to move. It just seems to stay steady. But I'm going to tell you, when you get, and it's all over, if you go on the internet and Google this, you will find this to be what most of us say. Then, when you hit 50, 70, 100,000, the investment just, the slope is up. If you don't touch it, if you don't go in and take some out, it'll be there when you get older. So Frank's question was really good too, because here I am doing kind of the bucket method, and I really recommend the bucket method because when you first retire, this switching to you having to be responsible for all taxes, and you earned some money, you earned a lot of money at work, you're retired, you collected, you're in the highest tax bracket and you're getting whacked. Don't sell a house in that year, or don't have capital gains, or don't sell stocks. Those years you have got to be thinking, I need to make it through a couple of years after retirement to get to my steady retirement paycheck. I'm Frank, I'm using your words. What I'm saying is you have other homes, you have a big home, you downsize, you got cash. Think about all of those things when you're doing the change of those years in your 60s going into retirement. Timing matters. And you probably have an idea of what you're going to spend, especially if you did a budget, especially at least if you did a budget. And then here comes the second part, the retirement paycheck. I think you have all the way until you're 73 before it's required distributions out of a 401k, an IRA simple, all of these investments. They mandate you start withdrawing those dollars that were pre-tax, that were not taxed at all. So this is where strategy comes in of developing a plan. And for me, I'm developing it before I'm 73. I'm going to figure out the allocation and look at my taxes after I've gone through this transition of getting close to what my Social Security is every year and what the money I need, and then my tax responsibility. And in good times in which I might have a higher amount of, say, the Trump big beautiful bill where he's given an extra $6,000, in the next few years, it might be good time to take some money out of that because it'll be taxed at a less amount when I take all those itemized deductions, all those new itemized deductions. I might lower my tax amount. I might lower it to the 10%, maybe $100 for every $1,000 I take out. So this is developing that plan. And I think what you're going to come to is after you have, people have a lot of different, if you have a Roth and you have a annuity and you have all these other things, it's complicated, but I heard many people start to reorganize it so it's a lot simpler. They know if they're getting Social Security and that amounts to $40,000 and they need $80,000 or $100,000 a year, they're going to figure out how do they get that $40,000 and how to keep the taxes down on that amount. And we never know where taxes is going. Right now, the push is for less taxes. But if you have a lot of pots and a lot of things, you really want to look at it and structure it so you figure out how you get the amount that you need. So I just wanted to get that out there. I think Frank spurred me on that he hit a great topic. That these choices that you make, and you can make different choices than I did. I did look at annuities. The fine print bothered me. I got those contracts. I actually got the documents. And the trick with annuities is those insurance companies that are going to guarantee payment for the rest of your life, note that they want your money and then you don't get anything for a few years. You miss out on the growth of those funds. I can tell you, when I had that discussion for annuity, thank God I didn't do it. My funds have grown so much that annuity was a ripoff. Now, maybe when times are tough and the interest rates aren't very high, annuities work. The other part of annuities that I didn't like, this is my personal, if I died, they took most of my money, didn't go to my wife. And this is what I want to tell you. It's a team going into this. It's a team also thinking about the end. I wanted to make sure that I planned well enough that if I passed, my wife would have enough money to survive and do her thing. And we all know Social Security, if either one passes away, the highest one, that's the amount the person gets. But it's no longer two people's Social Security going into one. It's just one. So you've got to really think about that. You've got to think about, okay, those expenses will come down a little. Say it's $100,000 when one passes, but it's not going to come down probably as much as the lower Social Security was. So you got to plan. You got to really plan this out. Guessing at how long you live, you never know. For me, the healthcare became a big deal, and I'm just going to throw this in as I got you thinking about the long term. I wanted the best medical plan I could get since I had a heart attack just prior to retiring. Some of you, that's not something that happened to you, but it could happen to you. Anybody, these things can happen. And I see it right now with my friends, family. As we get older, we start having problems. There's a lot to unpack here and a lot to think about. I know this is a long one. I think this is a good one. I recommend the budget. I recommend you figure out your numbers. The numbers of income that you possibly could get from your investments. And I talk about this a little bit in the budgets, like take your investment accounts and do the 4% rule in reverse, that you get 4% of that money every year. How much would that be? Add that to your thing. This is when you know you went too long. My video stopped. 30 minutes, it was the maximum time. But yeah, I don't want to ramble here at the end. If you have questions, first of all, if you like this kind of video, and this I did just kind of off the cuff, let me know in the comments. If it was helpful, if you want more about one specific thing. I tried to do this as quick as possible. In the description, I'm going to put a link to my budget. And please, I'm not sending out if you get on one of the old ones that I sent it out, I don't do that anymore. I put it in the description, cut and paste, put it in an Excel, and do your budget. You don't have to do the budget to live by, but you have to do a budget that you know you can survive by. Thanks for watching.